When they arrived at the university, students quickly gathered around them, taking videos and whispering about how beautiful they looked together. Many expressed their envy, calling Minsu lucky for marrying one of the richest and most attractive men in Korea. Sonjin held her hand and looked at her, telling her he would see her later at home. Minsu blushed, smiling shyly. As he leaned in to kiss her, she hesitated, whispering that people were watching. Sonjin, unfazed, pulled her closer and reminded her that they were married. He didn't care what others thought. He kissed her before walking away, leaving Minsu standing there, flustered as everyone's eyes remained on her. Feeling overwhelmed, she quickly walked away. That same morning, Woobin lay asleep in his bed, ignoring the calls that kept coming through. He knew it was probably his mother or someone from work, but he just wanted to be left alone. He had no desire to talk to anyone or engage with the world. After a while, his mother walked into his room and, without hesitation, flipped the blanket off him. She reminded him of the agreement they had, that he would return to the company, and expressed her disappointment in him for ignoring work calls and failing to attend important meetings that had been scheduled. Woobin remained silent, lying there without a word. His mother looked at him, concern evident in her expression, and asked what was wrong with him. She reminded him of the deal they had made, urging him to remember his responsibilities. At her words, Woobin abruptly sat up, his frustration bubbling over as he faced her. Angrily, he told her to stop treating him like a business partner, reminding her that he was her son, a human being with emotions and feelings. He had the right to feel whatever he was feeling without being criticized for it. Looking at her, he continued, his voice laced with exhaustion. He was tired of always being the one to save others, yet when he was the one struggling, no one even bothered to check on him. The only thing his mother seemed to care about was the company. She hadn't even asked why he was still in bed at that hour or whether he was okay. His mother stood there, taken aback by his words. Guilt washed over her as she reached for his hands, gently holding them. She assured him that no matter what, he would always be her little boy, and she apologized for treating him that way. But Woobin moved away, sitting back down on his bed. She watched him for a moment before speaking again. She acknowledged that he had a big heart and that he always went to war for the people he loved, but she reminded him that it was okay to choose himself sometimes. If he continued putting others before himself, he would end up watching everything be taken from him, trampled on by people who assumed he was a tough guy who could always figure things out on his own. Sitting beside him, she told him that she understood how much Sonjin meant to him, that he was more than just a friend, that they considered each other brothers. From a young age, she had watched him sacrifice so much for Sonjin. He had taken beatings at school just to protect him, given him his favorite toys even when he needed them the most, and always put Sonjin first. But they were no longer children. At some point, he had to choose himself. She reminded him that because he loved Sonjin so much, he had even stood by and watched him marry the woman he loved. And then she asked him the question that hung heavily in the air. How long was he going to keep sacrificing his happiness for others? Woobin sat there, listening in silence. His mother stood up, telling him to think about what she had said. As she walked towards the door, Woobin suddenly stood and called out to her. She turned around, immediately noticing the sadness in his eyes. In a low voice, he asked her for a hug, admitting that he needed it. His heart was broken, and all he wanted was a shoulder to cry on. Without hesitation, his mother rushed to him, wrapping her arms tightly around him as he broke down in her embrace. She whispered that it was okay to cry sometimes, that he was her son, and that she would never judge him. They stood there, Woobin sobbing into his mother's arms while she gently comforted him.